What's up, guys? I'm here with Cameron at the Wetspot, and we are going to talk about gobies. Let's start with these guys because I think they're super cool and I've never seen them before. So what do you know about them?
So these are Glossogobius Flavenis. These come from Lake Tawudi in Indonesia. A lot of the cool gobies that we see coming into the hobby that are poorly understood come from Lake Tawudi, Lake Matano, or one of those related systems. The pH is typically very high in these lakes, sometimes recorded up to 8.5, though you certainly don't need to keep these guys in that. Don't have to be brackish, even though these guys look very similar. I believe the water chemistry data is pretty warm water, 29 degrees Celsius, but then about 5 to 6 degrees of GH and KH. These will get about 3 inches long from what we understand. They certainly look quite feisty. I have been watching them for a little bit. You see some of these guys, certainly the longer, more filamented dorsals on the bottom. I think those are probably more dominant males. Few on the sides, few in the midwater. My guess is that that's just a little bit of territoriality. They're keeping each other nicely spaced, as you can see. They're jet black with yellow fins. They're beautiful, they're stunning, they're incredible. Past that, there's not a lot of hobby experience with these from what I can tell. I need to hunt down a Google Scholar article, learn a little bit more, but I at least know a little bit about their environment. Other fun fact is that this fish used to be in the genus Stupidogobius. Yes, like the word stupid, which has been synonymized with Glossogobius, which is probably for the best. These are fascinating. I love weird little gobies. I kept plenty of bizarre gobies back when I was keeping saltwater. I love these. I am fascinated with them. I just don't know what all they really do, and it seems like not a lot of folks, at least in the English-speaking aquarium hobby, do either. So I am super excited to just keep watching them and treasuring them until I'm sure they fly out of here. They
really are very striking. I rarely see something that's that dark, and that's what I asked you earlier if they stay this dark, and you said yes, and I think that's something to be said right there, because most fish like this I feel like will lighten up or the colors will change, but that's my favorite part about them is that yellow dorsal. They're really, really cool. All right, so I have had quite a few of these in my time, and I love them, so please tell us about these guys.
So these are going to be, and if I oopsie this, my bad, Styphodon simoni looks like, something's called the blue neon goby, then there's also Styphodon atropurpureus, which they could be, and I'm just wrong, the blue cobalt goby. Beautiful fish. This is darn near about the ugliest that they're gonna be. I think any Styphodon when it's courting, save one or two that I will say have great personalities, when males are fired up, when they're mature, are nuts. They're incredible. The blue's crazy. Styphodons are beautiful fish. Typically occur on islands and waterfall areas, so they can jump quite well, although haven't had too much happen with them jumping out of a tank. These stay small, about 2 inches. Females are typically a little bit less brightly patterned, but great fish. Tend to be very peaceful. Will sometimes squabble with each other a little bit, but never to the point of any injury that I've ever seen. Often I will see these used as like, oh, it's a great algae eater, because in nature, a lot of the time they'd graze on Aufwuchs, the little invertebrates living in algae. They will graze on that. You can see some of these guys in here munching on a few live worms that we have in there as well. I'm of the opinion, as somebody who used to work as a janitor, that these guys are maybe not the best cleaner uppers, but they have a ton of color and personality, and that any algae eating they do is a bonus. Incredible fish. Beautiful fish, great for nano tanks so long as there's a good amount of oxygen, the pH doesn't get too low. They don't tend to like under 6.5 in my experience for prolonged times, but great little goby. It's hard to go wrong with these or any Styphodon.
Have you ever kept these? So I actually kept mine in a 40 breeder, and I found that for such little fish, they use so much of that space, and I know they'd be totally fine in like a nano setting, but I think they look also very cool in larger tanks where they can move around, because these guys move. Their personalities, they just move around, they never stop. So I really love these guys. Okay, so these I have been hearing about, the Poreless Goby. I don't know much about them, but I'm already liking them. So what's the deal with these?
Well, that makes two of us, but I'm going to call them the Poreless Goby because they're really cool. Anywho, these guys are going to be found in, if memory serves, parts of Australia, southern New Guinea. These aren't going to come from like waterfall streams like some of the other gobies that we have in stock right now. These are going to be more like a backwater fish, pretty tolerant of a wide range. These are the Poreless Goby. I don't really know what that means compared to other gobies, to be honest with you. Gobyiformes is a massive order. I do like that these are in the genus, if memory serves, Oxyeleotris, with Eleotris being the water cows, those big beefy bruisers, which I have kept. These guys only get probably about 2 inches long. They seem to be dimorphic from what we can see. I can't imagine that they're overtly hard to take care of. They do seem a little shy. You can see a lot of these guys are hiding under these tubes, which I find very amusing. They've been doing that since we got them in, so while I'm not really positive on a lot of aspects of their care, my experience with somewhat similar gobies is probably that they should be pretty hardy. Give them some structure, give them some space, they don't get too big, and enjoy them. I mean, these guys have tons of personality, the face is very cute. This is a really neat fish that I would love to learn more about.
Yeah, those are awesome. I like that they're lining the tube. They're not in the tube. They're lining the rim of the tube, which is very industrious of them. I like it. They're smart fish, guys. All right, so these guys look pretty cool. I was seeing some pictures of them earlier. What are these guys?
So this is Styphodon CF rudularius. Sometimes called the golden red goby. I believe that's what we're calling them. If you can believe it, what you're seeing now, especially on the males, is a pale imitation of what they're going to end up looking like. I've kept these guys before. A little smaller than some of the other Styphodons. Mine only got to be about 1.25 inches long. Males, when they're really fired up, when they're really settled in, all of that kind of spangling you see, the blue remains, but intensifies, and then bright red. Stunning fish, incredible looking Styphodon. Again, I don't think there's many bad looking Styphodons, but these are something special. Same care rules apply. A bit of a varied diet with a bit of a carnivory lean. Don't just rely on them to eat algae, although it is really funny to watch them graze up and down the sides. They're pretty fast at it. I love these guys. They're very rarely seen, and the color is just incredible. I cannot stress enough how beautiful these guys get if you give them a bit of time. And again, these are still fairly new for us. This is not even close to what you'll see. Great little Styphodon, and as you can see here, do seem to spend a little bit more time in the water column as well, based off of what I've seen with other members of the genus. Yeah, it's nice to see them out and about, for sure.
All right, so these guys are really different, and I'm interested to hear more about them.
So Mugilogobius rexi is a very strange fish. I will say, unfortunately, a little bit trickier to keep. If memory serves, this is going to be a fish from harder water. Not crazy hard, but just north of neutral. And you can see on some of these guys, since they are a little bit newer to us, they are a little bit thinner. They're not as fat as we like to see. And part of that reason and part of the difficulty in caring for them is oftentimes they won't take frozen food very readily. If they do, it's something in the water column, and for any of us that have kept a fish that really likes frozen food in the water column, it means you get a big mess down at the bottom. Dealing with it now with my pikeheads and plenty of other catfish, it's a little bit of a pain in the butt. They're pretty slow to eat as well. This is a strange fish for maybe more of a specialized setup or a tank where you would feed a lot of like baby brine shrimp or other small live foods. They're fascinating, they're beautiful. They do swim around a lot in the midwater, which I think is really cool for a goby, but they're really just different. A little bit trickier for that reason. We're of course very lucky to have plenty of live food to offer them here at the offsite warehouse, but of course it's something for the hobbyist, the potential keeper, to keep in mind. Great fish, just a little bit different, a little bit nuanced, and that's why I'd really like to keep these guys and give them a spin.
Okay, so do you think it is at all possible to transition these guys from live foods to some type of like prepared food, or is that a no-go?
I certainly think it's possible. Definitely with a lot of fish like that like to feed. Interestingly, we'll say there are a couple workarounds that I've developed. I'm a big lover of predatory fish, and I'm typically way too lazy or cheap to sometimes buy food live food consistently. One thing I found is having frozen food that you keep in a cube form instead of squirting it into the tank with like a turkey baster can help as it falls from that big frozen chunk down like it's snowing. Sometimes fish will take to that. Smaller particulate foods like Daphnia or frozen baby brine shrimp, a lot of the time you get a good response because it hangs in the water column a bit longer. In terms of pellets, as someone who's trained a gulper cat onto flake food, which is very funny, a little useless.
Good for you.
I certainly don't think that
5-pound flake.
You can't. But I do think that it would take some time, and of course the time-honored tradition of mix in some dried food in with some frozen or live to get that feeding response going and see if they figure out its food would certainly be on the table. I definitely want to work with these guys a little bit more and see what I can coax them into.
Okay, so this is a species I've actually wanted for a really long time myself, so tell us about the red lip goby.
This fish is great. So this is Sicyopus exala squamulus, the red lip goby. I've seen it called the candy cane goby. Oftentimes you'll see exporters list them as Sicyopus, I believe, or Sicyopterus johnclausi, which is typically never in the hobby. These guys are going to be bigger, little bit feistier, a little bit squirrelier than, say, your Styphodons, which is part of the reason I really like the genus Sicyopus. If memory serves, they'll occur in a lot of the same areas, but their ecological niche is eating some of the larger invertebrates that the Styphodons might not be able to handle, which for people like me that like to use a lot of frozen food means that you can feed them a lot of brine shrimp or bloodworms problem-free, while of course mixing in some vegetable or algae-based foods as well. They'll squabble with each other a little bit. They tend to be fine with Styphodons. The color on these is incredible. I mean, you can see it right now. Red on the back half, bright red lips. Like this guy right down there, he's got those big red lips. He's got that big red back half. These are mostly grown. Might still tack on maybe another ½ an inch, but this is an awesome fish. Again, another waterfall area dweller, so make sure to have a good lid, or Dikembe Mutombo on hand to maybe block them back into the tank. I love these guys. I think they're really funny. Styphodons aren't always big enough to catch my eye from across the chair in the fish room for me at home. I love these guys. Yeah. Awesome, awesome Goby.
All right, so this one, been around forever. I love these, the Annie's Gobies. Please tell us about these.
Annies seem like they've kind of established themselves, at least hopefully for a while, in the hobby zeitgeist, which I love. Annies are one of the smaller Styphodons. They're incredible. Bright blue face, bright red throughout the rest of the body, smaller than some of the other Styphodons, going to get just a little bit over an inch. They're awesome. They seem to be very tolerant of a lot of different conditions. I've seen a lot of cases on like Facebook where somebody's keeping them in a fairly heavily planted tank, which I think is really neat, so long as you've of course got enough oxygen for them, you're not nuking them with CO2, driving that pH down. Annies are great. I mean, that's another case of, you see them right now in this tank, no anything else, no other fish to help them feel more secure, and the color's already awesome. And when they get bigger, it's just magnificent. This blue, red, just everything going on at once. It's an awesome, awesome little fish.
It's definitely promising to see something that small look that good, for sure. All right, so here we have the Discord Goby. What can you tell us about these guys?
These guys are great. They are in the genus Sicyopus, which always feels really weird to me because they do stay quite a bit smaller if memory serves than some of the other guys. The risk of sounding like a broken record, because you can see it on them right now, the blue and red in iridescence is incredible. To me, they look a lot kind of like a neon tetra. So if you ever wanted a neon tetra weirdly compressed into a Goby form and made to behave as such, there you go. Discordopinis are awesome. The Discord Goby is a really cool name. Unless you don't like internet chat rooms, I guess.
Yeah, I was going to
really
say, I
cool
like
fish.
it. It's good.
But these are going to be another waterfall dweller if memory serves. Beautiful little guys. Unfortunately, like many of these gobies, not one that I believe has been bred successfully in the hobby where the larvae will be raised up, but a fascinating, beautiful little fish regardless. Really cool one that you only see a couple times a year at most.
They seem to be pretty out there too. They don't look to be very shy, which I think everybody's a fan of. So yeah. Huge plus there when they look good and they're outgoing. Okay, so I am extremely excited about these guys. Please enlighten us here.
This fish is great. Seems like these only really entered the stateside hobby at least maybe a year and a half ago. The shell-dwelling clown goby, Mugilogobius adae is how I say it, is an awesome fish. Going to have very cute behavior, much more akin to like a Bumblebee Goby, it feels like. A lot more sitting, occasional swimming in the midwater, a lot of parking up along the sides of the tank, which I think is funny. These are going to be another Goby that does dwell in harder water, typically in Indonesia. These have been bred a couple times in captivity. It seems like for those out there that really like to spawn really weird fish, those out there that dream about having a cool Goby that will actually spawn in pure freshwater, which is a rarity a lot of the time, people have gotten, I believe, larvae from these, tend to park up somewhere where a male can defend the territory, lay eggs, and go from there. They're not obligate shell dwellers, but of course, if something in nature is living in snail shells, and if you're keeping it, why not provide it so you can see that really cool natural behavior, other than maybe that thing that Tanganyikan keepers kind of hate, which is if they hide in the shell, how do you get them out, or when do you see them? These are awesome fish, little bit feisty with each other, but I don't see why you couldn't have several and say like a 20 high. They don't get particularly big, maybe 1.25 inches. Really awesome Goby, packed with personality, got great pattern, get really good greenish color to them after a little bit, but a super, super cool Goby. I love these guys.
Am I seeing some dimorphism there with the males and the other females, lighter pattern, the males are darker, or is that just them being attitude-y?
Little bit of both. Okay. Some of these males, I'm going off of the dorsal fin.
Yeah, that's what...
Seems like they're probably subdominant, I would guess, but a lot of these females, yeah, are looking lighter as well, so that would totally check out.
Yeah, those guys look like they're worth the price of admission for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so these are the tiger bumblebee gobies. What are these guys?
So these are Brachygobius sp ocelot, or ocelot, I guess, if you don't want to get really Germanic for this one. Bumblebee gobies are one of those fish where a lot of what you read is really confusing. Sometimes it's, oh, you'll read that these are brackish, but they're not. And sometimes you'll read, oh, these can be kept in freshwater, but wholesalers and vendors can be unscrupulous and they need brackish. I will point out that a lot of Brachygobius occur over a huge range. Most of them can be pretty tolerant, but this is a truly freshwater species. A lot of the Brachygobius that are truly freshwater, of course, tend to like harder water, or at least a pH that isn't too overtly acidic. For those familiar with care of Bumblebee Gobies, these don't seem to be really any different. Little bit territorial with each other, but of course small enough that it's pretty rare for them to have too much problems unless you don't have adequate territory or too many in a tank. Really pretty pattern. That's how we're able to tell these are the ocelots. Very blotchy on those guys versus some of the Doriae or Nunus or Sabonis that you might also see in the hobby. Really neat little gobies, of course. Who doesn't love a Bumblebee Goby? Even I love Bumblebee Gobies. This is just a particularly nice variant that I'm really happy to see back in stock.
Watching them float around in the middle of the water column is pretty enjoyable, not gonna lie. These are good ones. Okay, and I'm not always the biggest fan of a common name, but a critter goby, I'm interested already. I like it.
So this is Lentipes critercius is how I'm going to say it. If memory serves, one of the preeminent Goby scholars, I'm going to go with Ron and probably screw that up, Birdsong, might have been Rufus, not sure. My apologies to the late, great departed. Would often call some of the gobies he studied in his journals critters, hence the name of critercius or critterzius for these guys. Here, we like to think more that they're named after the, what was it, 80s, 90s movie Critters.
Oh, wait, yep.
Mentally, that's what I like to think of a bit more.
I agree. I'll co-sign.
I don't know much about these. This is another one of those gobies where there's just not a ton of literature other than a few scientific papers. They seem to be closely related to some things like Lentipes venustus or some of the other Lentipes. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that over time these will develop beautiful red and blue, a little bit pearlescent. Don't get very large, a little bit over an inch I believe on these guys, but a very cool fish, one that we've never seen before, and I'm very excited to see what they turn into because frankly there's just not a lot to go off of. The knowledge for these guys, at least from the aquarium hobby standpoint, is kind of at the end of the rainbow for now.
Well, that's exciting. We'll see what happens. All right, well, Cameron, thank you for having us. That is a wealth of information on gobies, guys. If you still have questions, I don't know what's wrong with you. Just kidding. Just kidding. Ask questions if you have any. It's totally,
Always
it's
ask
totally
questions.
fine. And again, thank you for having us. It's been real. And see you next time.